Good Sunday morning. Brand new Fox polls this morning putting a spotlight on how Americans feel about President Obama's Syrian refugee plan. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Welcome to Sunday Morning Futures. So what will come of the president's plan to accept at least 10,000 refugees into the country after news of at least one Paris attacker posing as a refugee, and the House approving a plan to tighten the refugee system? House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Ed Royce with me in moments. Plus, the president with strong words for Russian President Vladimir Putin on who his forces are targeting in the fight against ISIS in Syria. Retired four-star General Jack Keane with me on the military and diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and Russia coming up. And the GOP's top donor not handing over any money to any presidential campaign yet. Charles Koch explains why. He will join me in my exclusive sit-down as we look ahead this morning on Sunday Morning Futures. The House passing a bill which would tighten the screening of Syrian refugees trying to enter the United States. 47 Democrats breaking from President Obama in voting for the stricter security plan. The bill would require 3 high-ranking administration officials to sign off on each refugee entering the country. And the concerns of the House also being shared by the American public. Take a look at this breaking poll, a Fox News poll showing that 67% of voters now oppose the president's plan to accept 10,000 Syrian refugees into the country. Joining me right now is California Congressman Ed Royce, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
First, I want to ask you about the threats to America. We saw the video from ISIS on the internet showing Times Square. How credible are these videos? Should we be worried?
Well, remember, we in New York City have been able to knock down 12 potential attacks, planned attacks after 9/11 successfully. So the United States has a history post 9/11 of being able to prevent attacks. At the same time, clearly ISIS is trying to carry out those attacks, and now they have a safe haven with their caliphate where they plan and train people, and that's what's so dangerous here.
And they have clearly begun to infiltrate the flow of refugees.
Well, they did. Obviously, the bomber who blew himself up outside of the stadium in Paris, he himself was carrying a Syrian passport, had come in through Greece with that refugee population.
So what's the answer here? Talk to us about the bill that is in the House right now to make it stricter and tougher for refugees to get into the country. The president has said already he will veto that.
Yes, but that bill passed by better than a 2-to-1 margin with large bipartisan support. And what that bill does is try to have a vetting process where right now the FBI have indicated to us that they don't have the data to really vet. They don't have the intelligence on many of these individuals. And remember, even in the case of some of the Iraqi refugees, we later found out 4 of them had been terrorists. So what we're saying here is that we need that in place, and we need the director of the FBI and Homeland Security to sign off by attesting that we have got the capability to vet. And we want to see that in place. So that we can protect American citizens.
Can the president prove that the vetting process can, in fact, be done effectively? I mean, when you talk to us about the vetting process, we all know that America has a huge heart, that we want to keep our borders open. However, when you consider the fact that ISIS has infiltrated the flow of refugees, how do you vet? How do you get the information you need?
Well, 2 points here. One is having the president assert this is not to us as the solution. The solution is to have the director of Homeland Security, of the FBI. They need to attest to us that, because they're the agencies that have raised the concerns with Congress about not having the background on these specific individuals. Second, if the president is really concerned about this situation, Maria, why didn't the president, in the first place, authorize the use of the airstrikes to stop ISIS from taking this territory and helping to create this refugee flow? And why won't he sign off, for example, on today the type of robust air campaign against ISIS? Or why doesn't he sign off on arming the Kurds and the Yazidis and the tribesmen, Sunni tribesmen. I mean, can you imagine the frustration of having 190,000 Kurdish soldiers, 30% of them female, not having access to the type of weaponry that ISIS has? They don't have the mortars, the artillery, the long-range or the anti-tank guns, and so we really need to have a reversal of his policies.
So why is the president pushing back on this? I mean, I just don't understand it. He said he wants to defeat ISIS.
If he wants to defeat ISIS, then why not support the suggestions that have been made all along to have not just a robust air campaign? We've got 3,500 U.S. trainers and special ops and forces in the region trying to help the Kurds and the Sunni tribes that are fighting ISIS. Why not allow them to have the weapons? Why not authorize our pilots to be able to hit these targets? 3/4 of these pilots come back without dropping any ordnance because they can't get authorization from the White House. So under this kind of circumstance, he's tied our hands with the containment strategy, where he keeps claiming, despite all the evidence that ISIS is carrying out attacks now and recruiting from all over the world because people think they can't be defeated, right, he keeps asserting, well, they're contained. No, they're not.
The issue that he keeps bringing forward is that he doesn't want any civilian casualties. I mean, if we've got so many of our airstrikes that are actually, at the end of the day, not working because they're not actually hitting the targets because there are civilian casualties, is that the answer? Is that what he keeps saying?
It's not civilian casualties. He's saying, I mean, look at what the French just did to hit, I think it was 4 of the training camps of ISIS. They said, well, those are training camps. We're going to take those out after the Paris bombings. We must allow our pilots and those on the ground, our spotters with the U.S. military, and we must allow the Kurds and Yazidis and others that want to do the fighting to take the fight to the enemy. And this idea that you're going to not only avoid casualties, but you're not even going to offer a safe zone, which in both political parties, people have said, protect the Sunnis, Yazidis, and Kurds up in the north by offering a safe zone so that the refugees have a place where they can be safe. If he's not even willing to do that de minimis action, how are we going to defeat ISIS? No, we have to have a reversal of this strategy.
Do you have any backing to say why the president is taking this stance? I mean, what does your gut tell you? Why does he keep saying no to the things that you and so many other military men have been saying, this is not working, this is a failure?
I think he is underestimated the danger of ISIS from the beginning. It was the JV team. It was never going to be a threat to the United States. But we have found that because of the internet and their ability to exploit their victories on the battlefield, that now they have become very much a recruiting problem, not just in Europe, but in the United States. So he should go back to his basic premise and rethink that thought that this is not a big problem. Second, I think he's adverse to taking on the attitudes in the Shia capital of Baghdad and in Iran by actually helping the Kurds, helping the Sunni tribesmen fighting ISIS, helping the Yazidis. Why? Because that's not in the interests of those Shia-led governments. But he needs to reevaluate that position as well. He should not be trying with this relationship with Iran and the Shia-led government in Baghdad at the expense of the stability in the region to keep pushing this.
We got to get to Eric because we want to look at the impending Senate vote. But what are you going to do?
We're going to move legislation through my committee, not just on arming the Kurds, but also on the issue of a safe zone. And we're also going to try to push this administration to use air power effectively and hit these ISIS targets.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks very much for joining us. Chairman Ed Royce here. We want to get to Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn. He's going to give us some context on this impending bill right now in the Senate. Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Maria, Congressman, and good morning, everyone. So how do we respond to this human catastrophe? Well, the choice seems to be balancing a humanitarian welcome with the fears of terrorism.
If you layer it with more and more bureaucracy, that doesn't actually make us safer, because it doesn't do a better job of screening, but simply makes it almost impossible to process individuals who are coming in, then you're effectively ending the refugee program for people who desperately need it.
We have been here before, millions desperately fleeing turmoil for the safety of our American shores. During the Holocaust, this ship, the MS St. Louis, was packed with 908 German Jewish refugees and was tragically turned back. Many of its passengers later died in Auschwitz and other concentration camps. But now the looming specter of terrorism is aimed at stopping or slowing the flow from Syria. Democratic Minority Leader Senator Harry Reid predicts Senate Democrats will block the new stricter measures, even as the president has promised that veto. One of the lucky few who has made it is Hassam al-Rostam. He fled with his wife and 2 young children from Homs, Syria, and was resettled in June in Jersey City, New Jersey, by the group Church World Service.
The individuals that are putting their 4 or 5 children on boats through the sea and risking their lives and death, this person can't be a terrorist.
Rostam now works a 12-hour overnight shift in a Jersey bakery, and he says he thankfully has a new start and a new life in our country.
In my mind, and I made up my mind that that's it, I'm here now and I'm going to get acclimated here. I'm going to start my life from new here.
Well, despite some successes, as you mentioned, Maria, polls show 67% of Americans oppose the resettling of Syrian refugees here. 1,682 have already arrived this year. The administration still plans to take that 10,000 next year. Maria?
All right, Eric, thanks very much. Eric Schoen with the latest there, taking the fight directly to ISIS and destroying the terrorist group once and for all. General Jack Keane is on deck next. Why the U.S. needs to ramp up its efforts and demonstrate real leadership. Follow us on Twitter at Maria Bartiromo, at Sunday Futures. Let us know what you'd like to hear from General Jack Keane. He's coming up live next. Stay with us. We're looking ahead this morning on Sunday Morning Futures.